Cool.
Very good. Abu, welcome to the AMA with the DeFi Angels. Hope you're doing well today. This project is for C4G3. Looks like it's going to be a pre-sale. You and I have discussed just in our DMs a little more about the project. I think it would be helpful for the group to really understand who you are maybe and what type of background you have and really what brought you to the space and how C4G3 came to be and now is going to be a project. So can you just highlight a little bit for us, maybe a little bit about that and your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. My name is Abu Bakri, Abu for short, and I've been in the space for like 3 years now. Started in 2018, Q4 2018, and ever since then I've been learning. It's been a learning journey for me, and I've met with a lot of people, a lot of developers, and project founders, and some VC platforms. You know, I've never really worked as a developer with any projects. All I've been doing all my life is learning in the crypto space. I mean, learning about how things works, and fantastic enough, every day you get new things dropping in the space, so you always have things to learn. So learning has been my passion in this space for the past 3 years. However, last year I got in touch with a developer. He actually developed a project, Statera. I worked with him for some months, almost a year, and I learned a lot of things from him. And from there, I met with a lot of marketers who are working with some big firms in the space today. So, generally speaking, I have been learning a lot for the past years, and the idea of C4G3 came as a result of my learning experience, actually. The idea is on to Statera projects, working with Statera projects, it's an index token, and that was the first time I actually started learning about index finances. Then over time, I started learning about the index DeFi pools and other index finances we have in the space. And to be honest, I studied index finances for almost a year, and I was actually intrigued by the growth that it has been facing, for the past 1 year. And you will observe that index finances, they are one of the safest way to invest in this space. From what I observed, this is my personal opinion now. It's not a financial advice anyway. So they are, from what I observed, they are one of the safest way to invest in this space. And for those who are patient enough, for those who are not really actually a moon boy, so to say. So it's actually, I prefer it to, holding the regular token or holding the regular shitcoin. So that was what brought about the idea of C4G3. So many things have been trending for the past month in the space. We have meme coins, we have shit coins, different shit coins, we have NFTs, metaverse, and the likes. So I was just like, why can't we just have an index of the meme tokens that we have in the space? Then I checked all index finances that we have, and I found out that there is no platform, no index platform that actually do have an index, a meme index token, so a meme index platform. So I was like, okay, I think I should be able to do this with my experience and with the number of connections that I have. I basically have almost everything I need in order to develop this. Talking about the developers, talking about the strategic advisors, marketers, and the likes. So the only thing is just to draw the plan, perfect it, present it to the developer, come together and start working on how to get things going. So this was how C4G3 was birthed.
So you were drawn to that index type of style, which I'm very familiar with, just being in finance for a while. And of course, it's going to be a safer route because you're playing off, in this case, different tokens. So that's really cool, and I'm glad that that you took the time to learn and really worked your way into this. It sounds like you've put a lot of time over the last 3 years learning, perfecting and moving into this. Now, I'm curious. Can you give us just a high level review of the ecosystem of Cage and also how this ties in with your Future Corn CMI? So basically just a high level review over the project, any tokenomics that are in there and incentives, which coins, are we feeding off of, just a general, really high level review of what you've created with this project would help.
Cool. So C4G3 is actually our platform meme token. The project is based on meme token index. So we need to have our own governance token. We just don't want it to be an ordinary meme token. So we really want to make it a valuable token. So that was the reason why we had to deploy the C4G3 contract. And the C4G3 contract is going to be placed in the index portfolio itself, the meme index portfolio. And the meme index portfolio, it consists of Doge, Shiba, Dogelon, and C4G3 token. Those are the 4 meme tokens included in the meme index portfolio. The 5th token is a stable coin. Just when things will go really, really bad, we just want to be stable a little bit. So that was the reason why we have the C4G3 as a token. Now the CMI, this is the real deal. The CMI is the real deal. The CMI is the cage itself. The CMI is the cage itself, caging these 5 tokens. So all the 5 tokens is represented by the CMI. So that is why we called it the CMI, Cage Meme Index. So all the 5 tokens inside the index portfolio is represented by the CMI, just as in the case of index.finance and in the case of DeFi Pulse Index. So each of those indexes are represented by a token. So the price movement or the market capitalization of each of those tokens is reflected through the index representation, the token index representation. So the CMI holds everything together, while the C4G3 token is the governance tokens of the platform that will be used for so many things in the future. And that is the reason why we made the supply so limited. Unlike other meme tokens, we don't want it to be a token that is too excessive to the extent that it will lose its core value. And at the same time, we don't want to make it a token that will be too scarce, so that at least everyone can have access to the token. So this basically, at a higher ground, this is the technical details behind the creation of the C4G3 meme index.
That very interesting how you are linking in with the CMI that'll be coming soon. Did you have a timeline that's on that?
Yeah. Yes, hopefully we are looking at Q4 2021 to have the CMI index platform deployed and launched before the end of this year. We really can't give a specific date at the moment, but what I can say is that we have already begun the development of the CMI index phase. So hopefully before the end of this year, everything about the CMI should get deployed.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I was just curious, and you answered my question. I don't expect an exact date. It's really kind of case by case. With the folks behind the scenes as these things take time. So I would encourage taking your time as in any development or any project out there. Really strive to be the best in it. But no, that answers my question there. And so as we move forward, with the project, let's talk about, your roadmap. I think that's a pretty pretty big deal. It looks like, phase one is being completed now. Can you just talk about, through this phase, what you've experienced and how that you've accomplished it so far?
Okay. The phases of the roadmap they are the guide we follow to, you know, continue with our development. And so far, so good. We have been able to go through all these phases. We have been able to access these phases without any issues so far. The phase one was smooth. The phase two, which we currently are in, is getting on just as we expected. In fact, we are kind of too early as far as some development is concerned. So, as far as the phases are concerned, everything is just moving as expected. If anything, it's quite above what we expect. To be honest with you, it's quite above what we expect, and that is the reason I said hopefully by the end of this year, everything phase one to phase four should be phase one to phase five should be completed. The end goal of the project is to develop a complete platform, then open it up to the general community. Of course, the theme will remain to serve as a guide. And because we build this, we, with our experience in this space, we are ready to invite in more experienced developers, more experienced, personality in the space as time goes on. But before that, we want to have something to present to the community. C4G3 ecosystem is not just a meme token, it's not just a meme project. It is something we really want to do to bring the meme token. We want the meme tokens trend to stay. That is what we are trying to do. So we want to give a reason to every meme token out there to build something unique in the space. So not just excessive supply or crazy tax on transactions and the likes. We really want to make something out of meme. And looking at the trend of meme so far, we have been able to observe that some meme tokens are actually focusing on building something really, really interesting. And while others are just there, so many are just there, quite a few. So that is the reason why the C4G3 ecosystem will not be based on the CMI index, meme index portfolio alone. In the future, we definitely are going to have more than the CMI index portfolio. But as it stands, we want to focus on the CMI index portfolio. We want to deploy it, see how it works. Then in the future, see what other projects, meme projects, we can bring together to form another index portfolio. We took after the concept of index the finance. They have different index portfolio for DeFi, for metaverse, for NFTs, and the like. So we want to create something similar to that. So as far as the roadmap is concerned, we are really quite on the we are quite on the spot.
Oh no, you covered a lot of ground. I'm really impressed with you. I have to say. But before I get too far ahead of myself, I do have a question in terms of, well, two things just during phase one that you were able to accomplish. The first question is on the initial fundraise that you're referring to. Is this the pre-sale that's currently happening on Unicrypt, or were there funds deployed into the project by investors before the pre-sale?
The initial fundraise is a form of private sale, or let me say, a seed sale. Initially, we didn't want to have any sale, but we thought we would be able to gather the fund we need to start the project. However, if we were to wait for that, it would take a long time, and we would miss a very good opportunity to launch the project. So that was the reason why we had to come up with the idea of the initial fundraise and the pre-sale. The initial fundraise is different from the current pre-sale that is going on. In the initial fundraise, we raised $60,000 from about 17 investors in total. So the fund, everything as we have it on our docs, the fund will be allocated to different level or different departments of development of the ecosystem. Um, so the current sale is meant to cover the liquidity expenses and some marketing expenses. The initial fundraise is meant to cover the main index portfolio because we were going to need some funds to actually buy some of the tokens that will be used in the index portfolio. So we calculated that we'll be able to need roughly 200, but we at the same time we were considering the fact that so many investors have been hit with so many scam projects lately, and people they might not will to drop some huge amount of money. So we just have to find a way to cut down the budget to something that is quite reasonable to begin with. So we hope that in the development process, we will be able to have enough to start something really, really valuable. So the initial fundraise is different from the current sale. 60K was raised in the initial fundraise, and currently $5,000 from the raised fund has been used in order to cover for some development expenses. The fund can be found on the Cage deployer address. Everything is there, both the fund that was raised in the USDC and the current supply that we have left. So everything is on the Etherscan. We want to be as transparent as possible. We don't want anything that will, give us any unnecessary setback in the future. So everything is on the Etherscan. The fund is there for our investors to see. And each time we need to use some fund, we give a message ahead of executing the actual. Okay, we need to do this. We will have to be moving some funds from the treasury, this and that. So everything is as transparent as possible. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does actually. Yeah, so I was just curious of the funds raised, before, but it sounds like, that was to cover the devs and to really get the project off its feet. Now you're moving into, the pre-sale, right? And then that's going to fund the actual liquidity for the LP to then inject into these coins that will be part of the index. So yeah, I understand. Now I'm curious on the phase one accomplishment of your contract audit. Which company did that audit, and do you have that handy that you can drop in the chat by chance?
Yeah, sure. Solidity.finance. We have the audit reports on our website, but let me get it for you. Solidity.finance did our contract audits. Before actually carrying out an audit with them, we checked out with them with the project they have audited before, and we checked out for their ranking in the space and the fact that they are also quite affordable at that stage. So we decided to go with Solidity.finance.
Good. I look forward to looking at that, and you've really, like I said, accomplished a lot in this phase one of your launch. So this phase two, that's ongoing. I know that you've already started, most of this process, like you said, so you're moving quickly. But this is, good. Congratulations on, getting everything in line and doing that. So as we move forward, I would just be curious in terms of the index, which coins exactly is it again that will be a part of this index fund?
Our focus is on the top performing meme token. So we have Dogecoin, we have Shiba, we have Dogelon, and C4G3, which is our own platform ecosystem, our own ecosystem native token. So each of these coins will be the 5 coins plus USDC will be the 5 coins that makes up the index portfolio, the CMI index portfolio.
And so as the trading would open and the liquidity is funded, then, you would be injecting funds into these tokens to add into the index, correct?
Initially, yes.
Got it. Okay. And then in terms of the actual, index pool itself, right? What you're going to have with these certain coins, is there an ability to add more coins to this fund, or would you have to do a mechanism like a fork or scale out to actually create another fund? Or is this one where you can add in, more coins to this one? Does that make sense?
Yeah. While developing an index fund, there are quite a few ways to go about it. One way is to make the index pool permanent, a situation whereby you can add funds to the initial index portfolio, the initial index pool. And another way is to make it more flexible, where you can add or remove tokens. So initially, we are looking towards making it a flexible pool. Before finalizing the pool, you want to make sure that everything works right. So let's assume after a month or 2 months of CMI launch, and we notice that one of the tokens is not performing very well or is going out of trend, we will have to replace it with another. So in this way, it keeps the index, the entire index pool healthy. So we will make it flexible, and it will be made in such a way that each fund in the pool will be replaceable. In the long run, if the initial pool is stable and healthy, then we will finalize it and it will be changeable. Then subsequently, we can launch other index pool comparison of different tokens, just like I mentioned before. Let's assume we have some meme tokens that are based on metaverse. We can have a separate pool for them, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 tokens. And every time we are creating each of these pools, C4G3 token will also be included in this pool, because it's very important. It's the governing token of our ecosystem. So this is what we are. But initially, the pool will be flexible. We'll be able to add or remove any token of our choice, or any token that is determined by the community, when the governance starts.
Cool. So you already have planned on a lack of a performing asset to replace it. And I was really curious about that, given, it's a fund. So in terms of like skyrocketing growth, it's more of a safer play, in my opinion, right? Like more of a longevity as these meme coins would grow. So that's, really cool to hear that you're able to put in new coins. And so I would assume here, and this is another question that, makes the value, say if we were to invest into, C4G3, those coins would be the driver really of the profits that we would potentially see, right? So as Doge and Elon Doge and all their, whichever one, all these coins start gaining in value, that pushes the price of this token up, or is it based off the volume trading with this current token that you're coming out with?
Oh yeah, it's the index coin, or the index token can be based on two things. We can have it designed in such a way that it will move by market capitalization. So the index token representation will be tracking the market capitalization of the underlying asset in the index. And another way to go about it is to track the actual price movement, the upward movement, and that is actually what we are after, because we want to make sure that we don't get left behind. So the index token will be tracking the actual movement of the underlying asset. So let's assume two of the underlying assets moves up. Invariably, it also pushes the price of the index representative token, the CMI token. It also pushes the price up. So this is the way it works.
So just as to play devil's advocate here, right? Because we all know it's not all perfect. Do you see any kind of, problems with having an index fund, or have your team looked at anything? Like, what would be the biggest bottleneck or hurdle kind of for your team, working through this?
Uh, First, the biggest hurdle or the biggest problem to face is not to have uh, a foundation for what we want to build, and that is no more the case. Like I said, we are learning from different index finances, so that problem or that hurdle has already been crossed. The issue has been eliminated. So we already have a framework we are working with because we observe the different index protocols in the space and we observe which of them is more effective, and that is what we are actually going to settle for. What can cause a total breakdown to the system entirely is if the entire crypto space, as you know it, shuts down or something happens tomorrow and the entire crypto space falls down. So, but as far as we have mem tokens trending in the space or moving up, we will always follow the market trend. CMI is a token that is designed to some extent, make you as an investor not lose out of the current trend of things in the space. For example, you might not know of a particular token, and we might have been studying the token for some time and decide that, okay, based on the community votes and the likes, we are going to include this token in the index pool. And as a result of that, it may be your first time, getting to know the token and making more research about the token, and you discover it's actually a good play. So it's kind of, I'm not saying it's a safe bet. It's not a safe bet as we all know it, but to some extent, it guarantees, it mitigates your volatility in the space. So this is the reason why we actually want to have the index finance sort of a thing. So the biggest hurdle would have been not having a framework to work with, but we already have a framework we are working with, and so far so good. We have not identified any issue executing any of the items on our roadmap so far, any of the developments on our roadmap so far. So we've not been able to identify any because before we started this initially, we actually made some deal research and we made a lot of consultations. So for now, we don't have any other we are facing, uh, except from the fact that we all don't know what will happen to the market tomorrow. That is the biggest challenges everyone in the space is facing. So, except for that, as far as what we are capable of is concerned, we are actually on top of our game here.
There you go. Okay, that's interesting. Um, I had a question from the chat here that I just wanted to ask you. It's actually a really good question. So, drawing back to deciding on when a non-performing asset coin would be, let's say, pulled from the fund and another one added. Who is the person that really decides that rebalancing of those tokens, and also who is it? The same person that is going to be adding the new tokens? Like, just kind of elaborate a little more on that process in the core team, or is it yourself of who makes those decisions?
Okay. As far as the index pool is concerned, it's governed by another protocol, balancer, balancer protocol. For some of us, we know how it works. For those of us that doesn't really understand how balancer works, it's a kind of automated market maker that actually handles the balancing of the index of the assets that is pooled in a particular pool. So the AMM handles the balancing system. So we don't do that. The AMM do that. The only thing we decide is which token to inject into the index pool, and this will be it will be a community thing. It won't be decided by a single individual. It will be when the system is launched. It will be multi-sig, a multi-sig system whereby not a single individual can, solely make the decision that, okay, I feel like this token is going to do well, let's add this token. No, before any token is added or rejected from the pool, there will be a community vote on it. You know, just just a similar way as it is done with other some other index finance. So the community decides, they votes on which token. The team make the research, come with a list of projects and present it to the community. Present their research results to the community, and the community decides and votes on which of the tokens to add to the index pool. So this is how we are. This is what we are planning to do. So it's not going to be governed by a single individual. It's going to be decentralized completely, and it's going to be governed by a community. And this is one of the reasons why C4G3 as a token is also essential. So it's one of the reasons. It's one of the use cases that C4G3 token we have in the future, because it will serve as a governance token for the entire ecosystem.
Thank you very much for that. Moving forward, just still just kind of following the roadmap and until the end of it, right? I'm just really trying to stay on track with you, and you're doing such an awesome job. Like I said, I'm really impressed with you. On the staking, I'm seeing that this could be a really fun thing, right? Where you have an NFT, a master's NFT, so you're looking at that arena as well. Can you maybe elaborate just more about what your plans are for the staking, how it works, and what the expectations are as an investor would be there, and then maybe talk about your plans for the NFT in the future.
Okay, as far as the NFT is concerned, it's still, to be honest with the community, it's still an item that we are still researching and developing. The idea of launching a Cage Master NFT is to actually strengthen the value of C4G3 token. We are thinking of a situation whereby you lock your token and you receive an NFT in return. The NFT will be very, very limited and very rare. And the problem is the value of the NFT itself. So we are still working on that. We are actually getting to somewhere, but I can't really discuss the details right now. But we are really open, and we are very, very positive that we are actually going to get to the bottom of that. So basically the NFT is meant to strengthen the value of C4G3 as a token. Number one, our token, our governance token, doesn't have any transaction tax. So it's not deflationary, so to say. And at the same time, despite the fact that our supply is very, very limited compared to other main tokens, we still consider it to be excessive. So in that way, we want to find a way to ensure the community that holding C4G token will always come with its specs. I really can't give you the details on that right now because there are some uncertainties about what we have on the paper as far as that phase is concerned. But what I can assure the community is that the staking is going to come, but we can't really elaborate on the form at which it's going to take right now. But we are really, really open and looking into making it something in connection with the NFT ecosystem.
Understood. And it is down in Q4 is the target for that of this year. So, understanding that you're not able to speak, I totally get it. You're focusing on block by block and you're still in phase 2 and executing that. And speaking of, phase 2, where we're at currently in the state of C4G3. I'm currently looking at the Unicrypt, and it looks like you've already pulled 21.7 ETH out of the 27. Where did you come up with the number, 27.5 as the total? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's based on the calculation of the price at which the tokens are pegged. So based on the actual value of ETH with the value of each of the token, the sale value is at 0.0045, 0.003 US dollar. That's the actual current pre-sale value. So then we already have a cap of the amount of US dollar we need from this sale. So it's not as if it's not really about the money for us. So at the same time, we are actually being careful of not, handing down the token in such a way that it will harm the developments of the token itself in the future. So that was the reason why it's because of the sum, the price of the token, and at the time the price was decided, the current price of it was about $3,200 compared to the price it's currently at right now. So that was the reason why we arrived at that actual value. So we did not want to make it excessive, and at the same time, we are careful of not shutting fall of funds from what we have drawn on paper. So that was the reason why we have 27.565.
It totally makes sense, and that's kind of where I was thinking. That specific number, it had to be targeted on something, and it sounds like that's targeted on the LP to be injected into these specific coins that will be part of the fund. So it totally makes sense. Now, you're in round two. You have 62 participants currently in there. You're very, very close, under 5 Ether just from closing out the deal. So how long did it take to raise this capital, and how long did it take to accumulate the 62 current investors in the project? So my question is, how long has this rounds been going in the process to date?
The pre-sale, this round has been going for about 8 hours, I think. The pre-sale started today at 9 o'clock UTC. So from that moment, it's about 8 hours or so. So from what we observe, people are actually having issues with the gas hike. So it's one of the reasons why I think it has been a little bit slower than the way it started, because at the moment the gas is very crazy. So, but so far so good. We started today at 9 o'clock a.m. UTC, and so far so good. This is where we are, and we are hoping that the sale will close soon so that we can just move on to the next phase of developments.
It's it's really unique, because looking at your Telegram community, roughly 250 members or so, and 62 participants in 9 hours. I wouldn't say that that's slow. I think people are investing in you, and it shows here to me. So I was just curious of how long, but 9 hours. When the pre-sale, just 9 hours having that much capital in there is very good. So my next question is, when does it cut off? And is that at the 27.5 mark? So it's on a time crunch. And then also, when is the actual launch? What time and date?
Okay. So our vow from the beginning of the project is to make everything completely decentralized in such a way that everyone who is an investor will have a say. So the sale is actually a contract, that has already been executed. The contract wasn't built by us, it was built by Unicrypt. But based on the parameters that we've entered, once the target price has been met, the liquidity will be ready for deployment, and anybody can push the button so far. If you are ready to spend the gas, anybody who participated in the sale can actually deploy the liquidity. It will launch on Uniswap V2 immediately as the sale closes down, and anybody can actually deploy the liquidity contract. The liquidity deployment will be is already being handled by Unicrypt contract. You just need someone to just push the button as far as you are ready to pay the gas price. So it's quite open, it's quite decentralized. So everything is meant to run. The initial launch will run immediately the cap has been met. So far so good.
I mean, I have to agree with you. So far, so good. And as you were saying that, you had another buy come in. So congratulations, you're moving closer to your goal, my friend. Um,
Thanks.
yes, absolutely. And then the lock on the 11 months. Can you elaborate a little more around the liquidity lock and then the distribution of funds? Meaning, will we receive 100% of our investment? Let's say, I invest zero point 0.5 ETH into your, pre-sale here. I will then claim those tokens when trading would be live at Unicrypt. They're then airdropped into my wallet. So do I get all the tokens at once, or do you have, a period where people receive only a certain amount at a time?
Okay. About the lock is meant for the liquidity on Uniswap. Initially, personally, I don't like the idea of locking up liquidity because it's sometimes it might make things a little bit hard on the developer. I've seen a situation whereby a developer will need to move or migrate the liquidity from another entire protocol to another protocol. And with the liquidity lock, this has been bad. But because we understand that this is what the community will want, so they want trust, they want something that is transparent enough, and want something that they can, point to and be satisfied that yes, I think for the next so months, I think we are safe as far as this area is concerned. So the 59% lock is meant for the liquidity. 100% of the liquidity that will be deployed will be locked for 11 months. After which, all things being equal, all things goes well, we are going to, initiate another lock again. We don't want to please an eternity lock for now because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. We don't know if there'll be a need for us to migrate our entire liquidity from Uniswap probably to another protocol or something. So we made it okay. Let's just make it 11 months. After these 11 months, then we are going to lock it again for another 11 months. All things being equal, all things working well. And yes, after the sale, all pre-sellers are getting their token 100%. No lockups, no vesting. The pre-sellers are getting their tokens 100%. The only investors who will be having their tokens locked up are the seed investors, and because that is based on so many things, and at the same time to also secure the later investors and the future investors, we had to lock up 70% of the total amounts that was allocated to the seed sellers. So that means only 30% of the allocation will be released to them on TGE, and the rest is locked up for 7 months with 10% discharged or disbursed monthly.
Copy that. So 10 on the seed round. Okay, so first question. On your seed round, how many investors were in on that?
We have 17 investors total.
Okay, so 17 investors in on the seed round. They're getting 10% airdrops on a monthly basis. When does the first airdrop happen?
Next month, September 29th. So the first drop is meant to happen on September 29th. But just to clarify things, they will have a 30% initial release, after which 10% monthly distribution starting by the end of next month.
Very interesting. So that answers my question there. Do you have a kind of essence of just starting out, like what supply that they actually own versus the entire, token, the tokens itself? Like, did you have that number by chance?
Sorry, I couldn't get that. Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. So the seed round investors, what their investment equates to in your token, what that equal in supply towards the entire project?
Okay, the seed investors, the total number of the supply is about 40%, 30%, if I'm not 40%, 40% of the total supply. Yeah.
So the seed investors owned 40%, or I'm sorry, 40% or 40% of the total supply.
Sorry?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand you clearly here. On the seed investors, the 17 people, are you saying that they own 40% of the total supply of the tokens, or 0.40%?
No, 40%. Initial, the total supply is 100 million, and 40 million was sold during seed sale. So yes, 40% of the total supply, 40 million.
Got it. Do you know if these folks are also in on the pre-sale as well? Have they committed investments to the pre-sale, so they're going to be in both?
I'm not sure about that. It's not as if I'm monitoring each of their wallets to know what they are doing. So I really don't have much on that.
I just didn't know if it was like a close group that you maybe work with, or who these people were. So just curious, maybe to learn more about the other
Yes,
scene.
yeah. Some of the investors are known to me. Some of them are known to me, and from what I know, they are not participating in the pre-sale because they really invested a lot on the seed sale, so they're not participating. From those whom I know, they're not participating in the pre-sale.
Very good. You've really answered all my questions that I currently have at this moment. Anything you want to add, maybe, just before I open the floor up for questions with the community?
You can open the floor. I really don't have much to add right now.
Great, and I just want to tell you too, you've done a really amazing job on this AMA. Again, for the third time, I'm very impressed with you, Abu. So, thank you for coming on and really giving me and the Angels a really good presentation over the project. And it honestly, it's helped me understand so much more about it. After, I can read things all day, but this is why we do the AMAs, is for this reason, to hear how it came to fruition from your voice. So I just want to commend you and say that you've done a really great job, in your presentation. So now I will open up the floor for questions. And if you're muted, you can feel free to raise your hand and we'll get you filled in here to, have your question asked. Also, if you don't feel like talking on the voice chat, you can feel free to type your message into the chat here in the DeFi Angels, and I will ask it for you, unless there's a team member from C4G3 here to answer. And then lastly, if you don't feel like asking a question on voice call or maybe in the chat, feel free to DM me, and I don't mind keeping things private and asking those questions for you. So at this point, thank you, Abu, for asking all my questions. Now I'm going to leave the floor open for the community here to ask away some questions as well. Okay?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Of course.
Someone wanted to know if I guess that's a rumor that they heard that the pre-sale tokens would be locked. Is that incorrect?
Yes, it's incorrect. The pre-sale tokens won't be locked. 100% of the current ongoing pre-sale token will be unlocked.
So I think there might be just a discrepancy just based on there's a percentage that they're going to get initially, right? And then at a later time, the rest of it, is that what? Can you go over those numbers with us?
Okay, for the seed investors, they are going to get a 30% from their total allocation at TGE, and the rest will be on a linear vesting for 7 months and a linear lockup for 7 months with 10% monthly release. And for those who are currently participating in the ongoing pre-sale, there is no lockup. Everything will be disbursed on launch. So everything will be distributed immediately after the token sale.
So that was the discrepancy, was that for the seed, for those people that participated in the seed round, they wouldn't get all of their tokens up front, but for the pre-sale, they would get all of their tokens up front.
Correct.
The
I
question:
also have a question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
How will you measure a token's community? As I seen, that was one of your criteria for indexing. I just wanted to get some more understanding on how you plan to measure that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get your question. Can you please repeat your question?
Yeah. How do you plan to measure the token's community?
I still don't understand the question, but I want to guess that your question is the assets in the
So one
pool.
of your token inclusion criteria lists that a token has to have a lively and supportive community. And I'd like to know, how do you plan on measuring that?
Oh, yeah. Token being supported by the community is, like I said, we have a very small team of researchers who, the current tokens that were selected were, we know the community for these tokens are large, and we know that these tokens can never rug us. Well, we don't know what will happen, but we know they can rug us. Dodge can go, Shiba can go, Dodge Elon can go. So, and ours is the fourth one. So, each of those tokens, there is currently a very small research, team that have looked into into each of these tokens before. We were very careful to select. If you observe, none of our index portfolio includes a token with a tax on transfer. So this is because we understood the danger and the possible security vulnerabilities in including a token with tax in an index portfolio. So we already have a team that looks into this, but once the project has been fully deployed, we'll select from the community. The community will be the one to, decide this based on governance. Those who are ready or who wants to do this will come forward. So they will be the one to decide which of these is this, like I mentioned before, there will be a point where the team will come up and say, okay, these are the tokens we found, these are the pros, these are the cons, this is what we think will happen if we include them in the pool or in the index assets. So for now, the team is handling everything, but once everything is launched, once everything has been deployed and everything is running according to plan, the community will decide that. So following our token inclusion criteria, it's very logical for us to have an inclusion criteria so that we just don't add any token that just launched and just did 1,000% in 24 hours. And we think as a result of that, we are going to include such token in the pool. And at the end of the day or in the long run, it's to mess up the pool. No. Our tokens that must have been in the market for some time, and that must have executed or fulfilled some certain criteria. So these criteria are very necessary in selecting a healthy index pool, because if we don't do this, then there's no point to the entire project. So there won't be any difference between our project and every other scam or shitcoins out there.
Okay. So I'm understanding that you're going to decide upon it using governance.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your explanation.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Pablo for the questions. We don't have any in the chat right now. Does anybody else may have some questions for Abu here that's unmuted? And if you're muted, you can feel free to raise your hand and we will unmute you so you can ask your question. Thank you.
I was gonna ask about the USDC. Could you explain what is the purpose? I know that all of the other coin or tokens that you guys are using or coins would be ERC20s, and I know so is USDC. But what is the purpose? Like, what does that do? With the other coins or tokens rather.
Yeah. For those, for the sake of understanding, we don't want to make the pool extremely volatile. So having a kind of stability during bear is kind of reasonable, So when things are going south and you understand that at some point it can be worse than this, so then it will help you prepare ahead of any upcoming challenge. So the inclusion of the USDC is to make sure that the pool is not extremely volatile, because meme tokens are very, very volatile markets. So we just don't want to make it completely volatile. That was the reason why this table was included in the pool.
Yeah, so to basically balance things out, because you're saying meme coins are so volatile, and so that's why you're using USDC. I got you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again, Kay, for asking more questions. Does any of our investor members may have more questions? Again, if you're muted, we can have you unmuted. Also, if you do have any other questions and don't feel comfortable speaking, you're welcome to write them in the chat. Okay. I think that Abu has answered all of our questions, if this is the case. So Abu, typically during this process, we will ask to part ways with you and your team while we make a collective decision on your project. Before we do so, I just, again, want to tell you how impressed I am with you as a human and a businessman and an entrepreneur. You came here tonight and you did a fantastic job on presenting your project, business adequate, and really, illustrating your explanations on the questions that we ask you. So that goes a long way with me. And I just want you to know that, it's much appreciated. And it's a breath of fresh air in the space to, be engaging with folks like you. So thank you for being so genuine and authentic and really, doing a great job on this AMA.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I actually like this. It's a learning process for me as well. It will always prepare you better for the next challenge. So it's actually wonderful. It's cool. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate the questions.
Absolutely. And you're welcome here in the Angel Group anytime, my friend. And just reach out to me as a resource in the space if you ever need me. I'm always willing to help, the good folks and the good actors in the space. And so yeah, the offer's on the table, and I'll be a resource for you. So thank you so much, Abu, and the C4G3 team that's here with us tonight. At this time, if you can please politely just dismiss yourself from our call here. We're going to move forward with killing the recording and then go through our questions as a community to make our decision. Okay?
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. That's okay. Okay, we can go ahead and dismiss the recording now.